Whoa, where are the titles? Live on YouTube. Going to be live on LinkedIn in a second. And then I'll send my folks a message on WhatsApp. Right? That's the drill. That is the drill. And then we will go. And then we will have the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. 190th episode. 190th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Ready. Let's go on LinkedIn. I shouldn't have a sip, right? That'll be blasphemous. Because that sip is supposed to be simultaneous. Perfect. So we are live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. And yeah, pretty much good to go. Should I just check myself? And yeah, good on YouTube. Good on LinkedIn. And let's begin. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. A lot of the people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis that don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. Oh, but before we go, we have this tradition to follow, the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. That is such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. The era of quantitative easing is upon us. The Fed is going to cut rates. India has already cut rates. People think India might just go for another 0.25. But Fitch says that's unlikely. We are hitting the bottom. Era of quantitative easing. His easing has essentially drawn some responses from Dr. Michael Burry. who's on fire on the internet, and for good reason, right? He says that this is not a good move, but it'll obviously gonna be averting a lot of crisis. The quantitative easing bit is also going to be leading the markets to some growth, which they very much need, I guess. Not really, the market has been up. But yeah, it's going to have a further stimulus to the environment. That's going to help everybody. Speaking of that public market thing, SpaceX might just be looking at a $500 billion IPO. They're going to be raising $25 billion in from the public markets to go public. And as they do that, it's going to be a new era for Mr. Musk. So Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, I'm missing out on companies, to be honest, XAI, and so on and so on and so on. So it's going to be really, really terrific for the public markets. SpaceX has, of course, got very, very good prospects. You know, it has a lot to do with SATCOM. It has a lot. So it's just incredible opportunities all the way. That's going to be going public. OpenAI is also looking at going public. Mid 2026 is the timeline for both of these companies. But OpenAI's public issue is not really getting a lot of good news, right? Good readings of the situation by very, very good analysts. Many people have said OpenAI is the linchpin of the AI bubble. That means it's going to be the first that goes down and everything is going to follow. So let's see how that pans out. No news as far as the geopolitical troubles are considered. International trade pretty much where it was, except for India's response to China's WTA suggestion. India is opposing it. It's a developing story. China had laid down a WTO plan for processing tenders and stuff like that. India was not pro that because it cut its individual freedom to make bilateral agreements. So that's going on when it comes to India and China. A lot of action, but no news. Essentially, there is a lot of flux, but the rate of flux is nothing. So all that flux essentially goes where it goes, right? Speaking of the Indian economy, Amazon has pledged $35 billion to India by 2030 with quick commerce push. $35 billion. That is a lot of capex. A lot of capex. A lot of it is essentially rooted towards quick commerce. Amazon has already invested about $20 billion. So if you look at the numbers, $20 billion previously stated commitment. As it ramp ups the 10-minute delivery, right? That means it's going to spend $15 billion on quick commerce. Holy shit, right? There was a $15 pledge. Large part of that, 12.7%, was towards artificial intelligence and cloud architecture, right? Amazon Web Services. So that's what Amazon is doing. $35 billion. $35 billion. It is just extraordinary the amount of money that's pouring in from towards India. The company invested $40 billion in India in 15 years to 2024. $40 billion. Amazon has been on a money burning sprint when it comes to India. Never made money in any way, even from a distance. But that's what's going on. Very complicated situations, right? Quick commerce is going to be a bloodbath. Speaking of quick commerce, Swiggy has successfully raised the QIP, the 10,000 crore business, right? With Rapido stake sale, they have raised 2,000 more. They already have somewhere around 4,500 crores, 4.5 to 5, which means that they'll be sitting on some 18,000 crores of cash, right? Which will bring them neck to neck when it comes to quick commerce capital raise, along with Blinkit. Blinkit is, of course, the market leader. Swiggy is on a sticky wicket. But now with the renewed capital inflow Let's see what happens to Swiggy. I had said that Swiggy's situation is very, very fragile. Its profitability profile is very, very bad, right? Whatever it's been trying to do as far as the quick commerce place considered hasn't really panned out. The money has been draining, the market share is dwindling, and so on and so on, right? And now people like Amazon and Flipkart, how many days do you think you're gonna hear an investment from Walmart, the news, right, on quick commerce? Not very long. So everybody's pulling in a lot of money when it comes to quick commerce. I specifically noted Swiggy's uh, you know inadequate situation. However, 18,000 crores is a lot of money, a lot of money, and that's gonna give it a lot of runway, which in turn is gonna give a renewed boost to Pradhan Mantri Venture Capital Amir Kalyan Yojana, because all these people are gonna be burning capital, right? The era of discounts is gonna come back, and as that happens, it's gonna be good for people. Just one party is gonna lose, and that party is, of course, the small businesses, building their companies, building their retail shops, and so on and so forth in a God honest way. They're going to be the ones that get hurt, uh, which is very sad, very, very sad, right? But it is what it is. And while this was happening, Mr. Albinder Dhinsa, who's called Albi by his close friends and colleagues, right? Mr. Arbinder Dhilsa says the bubble of quick commerce is about to get burst. The bubble of quick commerce is about to burst, right? That's what he said, which is a weird thing for him to say, but not really. If you look at it from a strategic aspect, the job of the market leader is to ensure that the new folks or the competition does not get money. So he was basically trying to dissuade the investors, the institutional investors, from backing any more quick commerce players, right? Because if they get backed, he's going to be the one that suffers. But the money is pouring in, right? We have Blinkit, we have Instamart, we have Flipkart, we have Amazon, we have BigBasket, and we have Zepto. So a lot of players. Who's going to be the first casualty? That's anybody's guess. Do you want to take a guess? Who's going to be the first casualty in this business? The first wicket down? Who's going to be the first to get acquired? Or essentially, who's going to be the first to get toast, right? You want to take any guess? You have Zepto. You have BigBasket. Mr. Sumanth Kumar says Zepto. Zepto, okay. Anybody else? I got that, Mr. Kumar. He wrote Zeppo initially, but I sort of corrected the spell in my head. Anybody else? Do you guys think BigBasket could be it? Right? BigBasket is in a very, very sad situation. Tata Digital ruined it, right? Do you think local Kirana guys in crossfire first, says Mr. Tushar Tiwari? Of course, they're gonna, unfortunately, they're gonna face what they're gonna face. But I'm talking about the, let's say, second casualty. If that first superset is the local Kirana stores, they're dying. I'm seeing my shops around my place closing down every day, getting replaced by soulless dark stores, right? Hurting the community, hurting the business, hurting the roads, which are just stuck, right? Because of these scooties all the time, very rash drive. The net effect of quick commerce is just purely and unambiguously negative. But let's count that out for a while. Who's do you think? Somebody says Mr. Sumanth Kumar says Zepto. Do you think anybody else? Right? Swiggy can hold on for a while now that it's raised 18,000 crores. Anybody else? I think Zepto, of course, is the usual suspect because it's an independent company and it has cash and it's looking at raising cash, and it seems like it's very, very good at raising money, and it's a relatively new company So its access to capital might not be that bad, right? Uh, However, big basket, says Mr. Tushar Tiwari, looks like it's gonna be it, right? Very interesting times. There's obviously gonna be some consolidation, no matter what. It may be Tata backs out. This reminds me of a dialogue by Mr. John Travolta in Civil Action, right? It was a beautiful dialogue. So I'll just tell you, I'll quote it. So he says, yeah, he says, the whole idea of lawsuits. So the whole, he's a lawyer, civil action, right? Personal injury lawyer, civil, civil, civil lawyer. And he's basically talking about how people settle. Nobody goes to the court to win. People go to the court to settle, right? And he says, the odds of a plaintiff's lawyer winning in civil courts are 2 to 1 against. Think about that for a second. Your odds of surviving a game of Russian roulette are far better than winning a case at trial, 12 times better. So why does anyone do it? They don't, they settle. Out of the 7,80,000 cases, only 12,000 cases, or 11.5%, reach a verdict. The whole idea of lawsuits is to settle, to compel the other side to settle. And you do that by spending more money than you should, which forces them to spend more money than they should. And whoever comes to their senses first loses. So that is what the case is with quick commerce as well. Whoever comes to their senses first loses, right? So very, very similar. And let's see what happens there. It's so sad that so much of good money was spent into this bullshit, right? So much of good money. They could have done so many good things about it, right? But somebody thought it was a good idea to essentially have a bonfire of dollars, right? Billions of dollars. Let's just burn them, and so that people can have 90-minute deliveries were on, by the way, right? There could have been 3-hour deliveries. It could have forced some sort of efficiency in the whole operation. No, they just killed it. They killed it. They just ruined the supply chain. Use the least effective method. So if you have a traveling salesman problem, right, that if you group some orders, they can all go together. You save money, you save travel, and so on and so forth. You save, hassles on the road. But no, 10 minutes, right? Everybody's doing a to and fro in a 1.5-2 kilometer radius. And that's about it. Mr. Sumanth Kumar says, Mr. Raghav Chadda proposed a ban on 10-minute delivery apps. Raghav Chadda, is that the Aam Aadmi Party guy? He suggested a ban. Well, you know what would be better than a ban? If that these companies are essentially just forced to operate on positive margins, right? Right now they are going negative contribution margins, negative gross margins. If they are just forced by the books to not sell anything at negative gross margins, their business will be over. It will effectively be done, right? But I don't know why the government isn't stepping in. I know actually why the government isn't stepping in. It's basically because it wants this capex, these $35 billion. The government wants it, right? It's just pathetic. It's just absolutely pathetic. Holy shit. The lesser said, whenever I'm talking about quick commerce, I have an urge to drop a lot of F-bombs, right? Because it's just a travesty on how much money this thing is sucking. And for what? And for what? What is that you're doing, right? Everybody knows. Everybody knows the market for this is very small. Why are you trying to spend the same money, new money, on the same customer over and over and over again? It's just so weird, but it is what it is. It's a bunch of rich guys, bunch of investors thought this was a good idea. Speaking of bunch of investors that thought it was a good idea, the chief of Uber, Mr. Prabtej Singh, he has said that India is focused on two-wheelers. The market for two-wheelers has a lot of room to grow, says Uber chief, right? And my question is, पाजी अब आपको समझ आ रहा है कि टू व्हीलर्स का मार्केट बहुत बड़ा है, राइट? ये आपको पहले समझ नहीं आ रहा था कि कैब्स का मार्केट नहीं है इंडिया में? इंडिया में एसी कैब्स नहीं ले पाएंगे ज़्यादा लोग, राइट? इतने हज़ारों, दसियों हज़ारों करोड़ रुपए खर्च करने के बाद आपको समझ आया कि ओह, देयर इज़ रूम फॉर ग्रोथ इन इंडियाज टू व्हीलर मार्केट, राइट? और जब आपको ये ज्ञान आ ही गया है तो आप कोई कॉमर्स वालों को भी बता दो. सेम ही है ना केस, राइट? इट्स द सेम थिंग. देन व्हाई डोंट these people anyway? So that's what's going on. After burning 15,000 crore and odd rupees, Uber has realized that Indians don't have the money for AC cabs, right? AC cabs, they don't have the money for AC cabs, folks. Whenever I think about cab aggregation as a business model, I'm reminded of people who used to say, while faking an American accent, they say, I don't own a car anymore. It's so perfect. Uber is so perfect. I don't own a car anymore. And right, they do own cars now, I hope. That's what's going on. Very weird. Apart from medicine, I don't see a point of 10-minute delivery, says Mr. Tushar Tiwari. Yeah. So let's move on from that story. Amazon investing a lot of money. That's good news, right? ADB has also come out with its projection for India, 7.2% in FY26. That's awesome. No change in repo rate, says Fitch. We talked about it. They think that it's hit the critical level. No change. Although a lot of economists think that there's going to be a 0.25 further rate cut, right? TCS has done an acquisition, a $700 million acquisition of a US company, Coastal Cloud, a tech consultancy, works with companies to optimize Salesforce CRM platform, right? It's a part of the Salesforce ventures. They're going to net a good return. As TCS makes its second acquisition in a very short while, right? TCS essentially, this is its second acquisition and eighth overall. The first one was List Engage in October for $72.8 million. This one is significantly bigger. TCS is trying to pivot the world's largest AI-led technology services firm. That is the pivot TCS is looking at. Very necessary. Very, very necessary. This is also collinear to what Mr. Masayoshi Son had for a vision, where he said he's going to be acquiring IT services companies because that is going to lead to quickened adoption of AI, right? Because if these IT services companies are acquired by an AI first company, the let's say implementation of AI or adoption of AI will skyrocket. That was his dream. Hasn't really panned out as yet, but TCS is essentially trying to do the reverse of it, right? It's acquiring AI first companies. That's what's going on. Moving on, the trade deal with US and India is on. We've discussed about this. Renew $800 million debt. Renew par. That's okay. FD is finding its growth driver in rural markets. Rural incomes, 14% rise in the rural term deposit outpaces metros, where FDs logged 10% increase in the September quarter. Why are FDs growing in rural areas? Can you guess why? This signals an inherent strength in the rural economy of the country. If FDs are growing, that means disposable income, that means incomes and savings are growing, that means investment potential is growing. This is great news. This is absolutely amazing news for the rural economy. This was sort of expected because of how good the monsoon was. The rural economy still depends on monsoon for all practical purposes. So since India's monsoon was pretty tight, right, the rural economy's metrics are also looking good. Speaking of rural economies metrics or outside metropolitans, Meesho's IPO has done very well, all right. Uh, the company saw a 45% bump over its listing price of 161 at the open, right? It was subscribed, I guess, 45 times, right? uh, and it has gotten given a lot of premium to its investors, early investors. Elevation Capital, single largest investor, now holds 11.9%. uh, Peak XV also doing well. They say we're gonna hold on. This is the opportunity. They said, if how do you grow the $280 million base of customers in India? And they said the reason why there are $280 million transacting customers in India is because of Meesho. Meesho is one of the one of the deepest penetrated players. Revenue of 10,000 crores approximately. Profits not yet, but certainly better profitability profile than Amazon and Flipkart, and so on and so forth. Great gains for Peak XV and Elevation, right? Serious amount of gains. 178 crores in proceeds for the founders who sold a bit of their personal stake. Very tight situation. Great stuff. uh, Two more IPOs happened. One was Corona research, right? Corona, was it research? Corona, essentially remedies. Corona remedies. That IPO really worked really well. It was subscribed stupendously. Then there was Wakefit. Wakefit had a very lackadaisical IPO, not good at all, right? But sort of subscribed, so happy ending. That's what's going on. A lot of action when it comes to the Indian aviation system. Only 70 less Indigo flights daily. Fares may not be hit. Indigo trying to downplay. But Babus are going to be at Indigo's office, essentially ensuring that Indigo abides by all nature. The chairman came and said that it was not deliberate, because a lot of people thought, and a lot of people were sure, it's not thinking, that Indigo deliberately sabotaged government plan to essentially arm twist them into easing rules, right? So chairman came that it wasn't deliberate. We tried and we failed. There were these problems and so on and so forth. But now Indigo is getting a lot of regulatory pressure from all angles because the ministry is very embarrassed. So there is chatter on the internet which says that until now, Indigo and the airlines of India were looking at Babu's incompetence, right? Bureaucracy's incompetence, in India's bureaucracy's incompetence. Now they're going to be experiencing something far worse than Indian Babu's incompetence. It's the Indian Babu's revenge. So I'll say that again. uh, Indigo and all the airlines from the country until now experienced something called Indian Babu incompetence, right? Where they just didn't care, were incompetent, and so on and so forth. Now they're going to witness and hard way the Indian government's or Indian Babu's revenge. That is very heavy, and that is absolutely right. The government does not want these guys to go so easily, go scot free, say sorry and move on. So it's definitely gonna. But the thing is, there is nobody who can take Indigo's place, right? The aircrafts are limited. Uh, Nobody has the capacity. So even if they want to kill Indigo for, it's what do you call it? It's belligerence, right? Even if they want to kill Indigo for its belligerence, there is nobody that can take its place. The aircrafts are just not there with other airlines. So Indigo is going to have its way for a while as the government makes its life very difficult. Let's move on. Intel's chief, Mr. Lip Bhutan, met Mr. Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister, and he said that India is supposed to, or India should try to bring back its techies. Bring back Indian talent for semiconductor production boost. Inspiring meet with Prime Minister, he says the Indian talent, the designing talent, right, it could be very, very good for India's ISM, which is semiconductor mission. So that's what he said. Is well thought through, and the company is committed to support the effort, finding ways to bring back chip talent to India. India's chip design capability is very strong, and a huge talent base is servicing companies such as Qualcomm, Intel, Texas. It's about time to really attract some of the best talent or entrepreneurs from the US or any place and have them based here and build world class companies. That's what China did, he says. Uh, will India be able to attract talent? Well, let's find out. For now, it is what it is. Mr. Satya Nadella has said something interesting. He says that Microsoft is also very, very bullish on the country, and India is in a very good position to essentially take advantage of the AI revolution by being the leader in adoption. And he says something which I think is not pretty intellectually honest, but here is what he says. The most important he says, I'm a firm believer that ultimately when it comes to new technology, the rate of diffusion is the winner. People who have studied historical technological waves have said countries, companies, communities which got ahead were not people who created the leading tech. It was the people who adopted the leading tech the fastest to create more leading tech. That's what he says. Do you agree with him? He says that it's not creating tech that is important for a country. It's adopting tech, adopting the leading tech. Do you believe him? Can you find out the problem with his statement? Can you pinpoint the exact issue with his statement, Mr. Satya Nadella? Can you guess it, folks? There is a problem. There's just three words, right? And that's the entire problem with the argument. And it's deliberate. It's a deliberate call, but it's just three words. So he says that the adoption of a particular, the countries which have higher rate of diffusion, that's basically adoption, fancy word for adoption. If they adopt well and not create well, they could basically be leading. The problem is lying by omission, right? There is no adoption without creation, and it's actually it's a deliberate lie by omission. And if it's not a lie by omission, it's just a plain white lie. So if you look at it historically, let's look at Europe. Europe has been at the forefront of rate of diffusion, as he called it, right? Did it really benefit from leading technology rate of diffusion? Is Europe better off economically than it was like 30 years ago, right? So that goes out, right? If you look at China, was it the rate of diffusion alone that led to Chinese growth? Or was it rate of diffusion and creation, and a very protectionist kind of creation? It was the latter, right? So it wasn't just rate of diffusion, whatever that means. It's actually creation, right? Along with rate of diffusion. Rate of diffusion is a de facto thing that's going to happen anyway, right? Of course, if you stop the adoption of a particular tech, it's not going to be good for you. So it's just a lie by omission. Or it's, I don't. So the reason is that there is no chance that Mr. Satya Nadella doesn't know what I'm talking about or doesn't know this particular fact, right? It's obvious that he knows. It's not just the rate of diffusion, but that's what people say. That's for reading between the lines, right? The rate of diffusion is not enough, even though Mr. Satya Nadella might say. Moving on, folks. Adani Enterprises rights issue subscribed to raise 25,000 crores. That it concluded its nearly 25,000 crore right issue with 108% subscription, one of the largest and closely watched, had opened for on November 25. So that's what happened. Very, very good. Indian large caps are looking good. They're saying that they're going to deliver about 12 to 14%, right? Indian equities, of course, looking good for a while. Moving on, folks. A lot of political chit chat, which we best not discuss. Rate of diffusion. Rate of diffusion. Does it help people to talk like that? I mean, why is there's such intellectual dishonesty amongst people at the top tier of the technological revolution or the business ecosystem? Or if you have to craft a narrative, why would you do it so transparently, in a transparently bad way? That is a very good question. Isn't there a better way to frame it? Was there a better way to frame the whole thing, the whole spiel for Mr. Satya Nadella, right? A better way for him to frame it would have been that the fundamental technology, right, or the bedrock of this particular revolution might be going in the West or wherever, but India has a lot of chance to create IP-led businesses on the top of this, because this whole industry could be commoditized. The token per watt thing, he's saying that more energy leads to more tokens leads to more, so token per watt is what he's gunning for. Wouldn't a better way to essentially articulate the same spiel be that this particular tech could be commoditized or would be commoditized, and there's a lot of scope of creating IP-led businesses over and above it, and that could be a lot of great value capture for a country like India while it tries to create its own fundamental models. Wouldn't that have been a better sell, right? That have definitely been a more transparent, more less patronizing way of saying it. However, the problem with that would have been, if you would have said that this particular thing will be commoditized, Microsoft's own business prospects would have started looking bad in a way, right? Because it is invested so much in this fundamental play. So it's very tricky to handle communications at that level. But you could definitely do a better job, Mr. Nadella. Moving on. Token per rupee per watt correlate with GDP growth. That's what he's saying. Swiggy's 10,000 crore rupee, 4.5x offers, small, strong mutual fund backing. Photoshop has signed up a deal with ChatGPT, right? Where Photoshop, Adobe Express, Acrobat apps will be fitted into ChatGPT, and you'd be able to use them through ChatGPT itself. This is signing the deal with the devil, right? In my opinion, if Photoshop signs this deal with OpenAI, how long will it take OpenAI to essentially bypass Adobe, right? And essentially replace it with its own service, right? Not very long. This is called, what is it called? Cannibalizing one's own business, right? So that's what's happening with Adobe. Very weird. Moving on, folks. Two-wheelers a key growth engine, sir. Very nice. India to build a fully indigenous HPC system. HPC is high performance computing system, right? Indigenous content in supercomputer systems reached 50%. Product launch by 2032. So Indian Semiconductor Mission is looking at smartphone revolution as an example, or as let's say inspiration for it to go on. It said it began with assembly, but now a lot of core components are also getting manufactured. The same is going to be with our own compute facility. By 2030 we will develop the complete system, and by 2032 manufacturing and products will come out in the market, right? HPC systems has already reached 50%, the indigenous content, expected to exceed 70%. He says the mobile handset sector, one of the most visible success stories, has seen production expand 28%, and exports surged 127%. But a lot of people at the same breath say the Make in India thing is scam because, right, core components are still being imported and it's basically completely knocked down, CKD playing out and getting assembled in some form, right, which is what we're trying to change. And that's what's happening. India inside, they're painting out Intel inside and an India version of it. Very necessary. Just 1 second, folks. I have this flask today, right? The water gets cold. I hope you're enjoying your hot sips as well. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Indigenous content. The Center of Development of Advanced Computing has successfully built indigenous components, including servers, interconnects, and liquid cooling systems. Right? Let's move on, folks. It's so hot. So hot. Usually it just gets cold in like 5 minutes, right? And I'm not being able to sip enough throughout the show. Moving on, folks. Nestle India looks up the rural play. As you might have heard, of course, the viewers of Thinkers Frequency know. Things have changed for FMCG in India, right? FMCG is looking back at growth. HUL just yesterday announced that it's gonna at least match India's GDP growth, right? Very necessary. Nestle, which has primarily been a metropolitan play, right? It's gonna be looking at rural incomes now, rural baskets. Very interesting. Nestle chief used to be the Amazon head, and he's looking at our contribution from rural India is at 15% compared to average 40 to 50% for FMCG's companies. Why are we at 15 while others are at 40? That is the question Nestle is asking. Maybe price points, new packaging, lesser volume quantities, and so on and so forth. That's the kind of strategy Nestle is looking at. Incomes and aspirations in place. Premiumization key, markets to pick up on stabilizing input prices. So FMCG, unsurprisingly, moving forward in all directions. Rural economy looking good on the back of everything that's going on, including a good monsoon. Let's move forward, folks. High Court has ruled that Sun Pharma can export semaglutide to Novo Nordisk's non-patent markets. So this is an ongoing story. There was this case where Novo Nordisk said that Sun had basically violated its patent, its infringement. There was a patent infringement case. Sun was fighting it out. Sun said, no, this is different, and so on and so forth. And till the time that patent exists, the court has said that it can export the semaglutide version to markets where Novo doesn't have, its patent. This is basically a win for the generics, right? Good news for Sun Pharma. I don't think it's gonna stop. Maybe it does, right? Maybe Novo essentially contests it. If it contests, you know what's gonna happen, right? What do you think happens if Novo contests this particular High Court ruling? The matter will come up for further hearing on February 19th, right? That's what's happening. Novo Nordisk filed a patent infringement case against Sun Pharma and pleaded for court to restrain the company from manufacturing and selling the drug, right? Noting some pharma's sub-commissions, Justice barred the generic company from domestic sales till March 26. The judge also asked Sun Pharma to file an affidavit to give undertakings. The matter will come up. Sun Pharma told the court that it was aware of High Court's judgment and would give an undertaking, and so on and so forth. So that's what's happening. March 2026 is when Novo's patent expires. That's gonna be the incoming wave of generics when it comes to Indian markets, right? The semaglutides and so on and so forth. Let's see what happens to... we tracked Shelly. We are tracking Shelly. Is there any other company, folks, Could you find any other company which could be looking at gaining from the second order effects of the particular revolution, the whole thing? Any other company? If you do let me know, right? We want to track that. We want to track that. This is gonna grow 10x in 1.5 years, not even 2 years anymore. Moving on. We've talked about ADB lifting India's growth prospects to 7.2%. Good Q2 performance, robust consumption, expansion of manufacturing services sectors. Nothing we don't know. ADB is amongst a lot of players basically revising their growth prospects for India. No surprise there. So if you look at growth rates of competing economies, 2026, China is at 4.3%, Vietnam is at 4%, 6.4%, very close. South Asia 6, developing Asia 4.6, Thailand 1.6, India at 6.5 earlier, now 7.2, right? Very, very different. Moving on. Indian clothes, home linen may have to tag care origin fabric details. Move to help India match global practices. So now when you have a fabric, there is a thing made in, wash in a certain way, and so on and so forth. Now they're going to be like sourced from the fabric, the thread, and so on and so forth. That's going to be apparently good for exports, right? The thread counts. That's the new regulation, new labeling rules in the works. That's going to help with identification and, of course, export norms, because European markets perhaps demand it. India produced textile apparel worth $175 billion in 2024. Exports in April-October of 2025, this particular fiscal year, stood at $20.4 billion. So $175 billion, that's roughly the size of India's textile and apparel market, right? The production of it, $175 billion. If it's growing at, let's say, 6.6% CAGR, it must be sitting at $180 billion right now. That's how much textiles we make, right? Moving on. Labels help textile products recycling by showing their composition. That's okay. Boost the textile waste value chain, as a part of which it aims to make mandatory a certain amount of textile products in government procurement to be made of recycled materials, right? That's what's going on. Essential to know the fiber content to ensure that cloth is compatible with textile recycling processes. Not just exports, recycling also a key part of this story. Moving on. We already talked about India slamming the China-led investment plan in WTO. That's an ongoing story, by the way. We've talked about Fitch thinking RBI won't reduce the rates anymore through FY27. They've hit the critical levels, they say, right? Close to terminal level, and thus no further changes are expected. Rupee seen at 90.5 per dollar. 90.5 per dollar. Moving on. Kotak Securities looking at 13% rise in Nifty in the next year, by the next year, right? Large caps drawing 12 to 14%. Large caps doing well. No surprise there. Moving on. Wall Street looking. Silver, by the way, grew a lot. If you noticed, silver really went up. Gold went up a little. Let's look at the GLD price. GLD price. 0.43% up 0.6% in 5 days, 3%, 2.8% in a month, right? And if you look at SLV, 1.63% up, 7.3% up in 5 days, and 1 month, 22% up. So silver is really reeling in, right? Global cues and so on and so forth. Good demand. Silver rising, gold rising. Moving on, folks. Try, in an ongoing story again, Try has essentially mooting up 55% cut in the backhaul spectrum fee to reduce telcos cost. Backhaul spectrum fee is basically the interconnection fee. We talked about it. Uh, uh, we talked about it in where November 30th, right? That's what it was first reported. That regulator was looking at halving the backhaul spectrum fee. A regulator wants a shift to flat 0.1% of AGR per carrier, replacing the escalating fee system. This is very good news for the telcos, right? Telcos were essentially hoping for it, and now they've got it, which means there's more upside for the telco players, which shouldn't be surprising because we talked about how Airtel has, in the past 3 years, been giving a 24% return on capital, right? CAGR. It's been awesome, and now it's looking at essentially more than 30% because it's what is it looking at? Somewhere around, it's doubling in the next 5 years or something of that sort, right? So Airtel looking cool. Some data points here, right? Earlier, charges of backhaul spectrum for the first carrier was at 0.15% of adjusted gross revenue, while subsequent carriers were charged progressively higher due to weighted average formula. Telcos having more carriers were paying a substantially higher percentage of AGR, and outgo risk was rising, right? And now, under the new, TRAI has rationalized prices by fixing spectrum prices at a uniform rate of 0.1% of AGR per carrier, resulting in about 55 savings in backhaul spectrum, right? Backhaul spectrum refers to airwaves that carry voice and data between mobile towers and the core network. So this is great news, right? Uh, Speaking of great news, Vodafone doesn't have any. 1 in 5 Vodafone users inactive, says study. Only 154.7 million of its 197 million subscribers are active, pushing recalculated ARPU close to Reliance Jio's. So this means that Vodafone doesn't have the read between the lines. So the first reading of the situation is that since Vodafone doesn't have like it's 20% of its customer base is dead, which means its ARPU is already close to Geo. Like that's a good news at the outset, right? If you read that, that will mean, oh, this is a good news, right? Vodafone doing well, right? 1 in 5 customers not active because of whatever, but ARPU is pretty solid. And the bad news is this means that it doesn't have much room to grow as far as its ARPU is considered. And since it's losing customers very, very rapidly, and it cannot be raising ARPU because it's already close to Geo, right? This this particular telco is essentially ruined. They don't have a lot of hope, right? Maybe a lot of capital solves some of their issues, but they're toast. And you know who is to be blamed for this, right? You know who's responsible for Vodafone's failures? We've talked about this. Vodafone reported our ARPU is $167, but active user ARPU is $209. Geo is $220. Airtel as $256, right? That's what's happening. Very, very weird news for Vodafone. This finding comes at a time when Vi has deployed nearly 12,000 crores in capex and has only recently begun showing a recovery of subscriber, which is essentially PR. It's not really showing a recovery of subscriber, right? Some numbers, 585 minutes per month per user versus 1,000 minutes for peers. That's what's happening with Vodafone. Not good news, never good news. Folks, you didn't tell me who's responsible for Vodafone's troubles. We've talked about this. It's a good joke, I think. It's basically Abhishek Bachchan, right? Moving on. Porsche and Vodafone having a control fight. Porsche's planned push for control is adding to Vodafone mounting woes, threatening the automaker's recovery. Mr. Sumanth Kumar says, Abhishek Bachchan. Moving on, folks. There's news that social media history is becoming paramount for visa-free arrivals, right? Info of your online profile to be mandatory data during screening for US from countries like Japan, UK, Germany, Australia can now enter without visa if social media history is provided. What do you think? Did you know that social media history of people would have been so relevant, right? So relevant. It's essentially giving them a plane ticket, right? And refusing a plane ticket if your social media history doesn't apply. So that's very, very weird. Nobody. And how do they take social media history? Do they check the account, right? They scrape it, or do they actually, uh, you know, go towards getting the deleted archives? What do they do essentially? Uh, they cannot request for a backdoor of any sort, right? The tech wouldn't allow for it. So how do they do that? That's very interesting, right? Because somebody can still fool them by just deleting their social networks, right? I don't have a social media presence, something of that sort. What do they do in that case, right? No visa free travel? Or do you get a visa free travel because you don't have a social media history, right? So essentially, by masking your identity online, could you game the immigration process? Very, very interesting. With that, we come to the end of the 190th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis that don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. Not a very active day for news, essentially. So whatever we saw today was already discussed in some or the other way, except for a few remarks here and there, right? Uber, Mr. Satya Nadella, Intel, Mr. Lib Bhutan, and so on and so forth. Not really much going on, it seems, right? Because you know why? Why there's such a lackadaisical activity in the media landscape? Because everybody's waiting for things to happen when it comes to the rate cuts and so on and so forth. Right now, it's slightly wait and watch kind of a game. That's what happened with Wall Street as well. If you looked at the American markets, very static. So the next few days are going to be very, very instrumental on how this thing shapes up and the response to the markets and so on and so forth. Today, I was just shooting the shit, right? And that's okay. That's okay. Some light days are necessary. They're good for the soul. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis that don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in comes to the end. Comes to an end. 9:25, we're going to punch in anytime. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Please take care and have a beautiful day. And please contribute to Thinker's Frequency patron thing, right? If you want to keep the show running, you'll have to do that. I should thank Mr. Sumanth Kumar for being such a good patron. Thank you so much. The intern is happy for a job because of you. Mr. Tushar Tiwari and everybody else who joined. Please take care. Bye-bye.